evening. I am Richard S. McGhee, and you're watching The Learning Tree. I have with me a very distinguished minister and professor, Pashington Obeng. Pashington Obeng is the associate minister at the Wellesley Hills Congregational Church. Is that right?
Correct.
And a professor at Wellesley College and Harvard University. Pash and I are going to talk about his years of study and travel looking at the slave trade in India, of all places. Slave trade in India. Is that what I meant?
Yeah. Correct.
But before we do that, I want to hear a little bit about Pash Obeng, Reverend Pashington Obeng. Tell a little bit about you. How in the world did you come to this world, and what have you been doing in it? And I know that you just celebrated 25 years with the Congregational Church. They gave you a big party, and you wouldn't invite me, and wouldn't come over and say, "Bring me some cake."
Thank you, Richard. I have been at the Wellesley Hills Congregational Church for over 26 years as an associate minister. I've been there with my family. Our children were raised here in Wellesley, and now all three young men have left for the West Coast.
You have three men.
Yes.
All right. Where in the world did they?
One is in San Francisco.
It's where?
San Francisco.
Okay.
Two of them are in Portland, Oregon.
Okay. What's in Portland, Oregon?
They work there.
Okay.
Yes.
Yeah. And how about you? How'd you come? You're not originally from Wellesley or Massachusetts or the United States, I gather. Is that right?
So I went to different schools in Canada, and then my wife and I migrated to the United States.
Okay. How long ago was that now?
This would be about 34 years ago.
Okay, all right.
And continued my education in the United States. And then I got a call from the Wellesley Hills Congregational Church to come and serve as an associate minister in Wellesley. At the same time, I have been teaching, trying to understand issues of freedom, of enslavement, of social change, and how people's religious practices have also been shaping the way they look at reality.
Are these the things that you teach?
I teach
and
some of that.
And you research them.
And I research them, and I also teach cinema.
What's that again?
Film studies.
Film, okay.
Yes.
Film?
Yes.
What do you do in film?
During my training in Canada, I studied journalism and communication.
Okay.
And for that reason, I have been teaching images of Afrikaner people through the cinema. I also teach images of blacks and women in American popular culture. I have also been teaching a course titled The History of Black American Cinema.
Oh my goodness.
So I have film classes that I do teach at the institutions where I have been serving at.
Okay. Last week I just had three black producers and writers for film and stage on the show. Oh, that would have been too bad I didn't know you did that. You would have fit right in with them.
That is okay.
Okay.
That is okay.
But you didn't tell me what country you came from to the United States.
Came originally from Ghana in West Africa.
Ghana. I've been there, yes, West Africa. How is Ghana these days?
Things are going well.
Right.
things are going well. And Ghana has a population of about 22 million,
Okay.
and which is the size of 92,000 square miles. 92,000 square miles. That's the size of
That's
Ghana.
a lot of mileage.
Yes.
That's a lot of territory.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. Well, we're going to talk about India, so let's see what India looks like. India is, in population, is the second largest country in the world. I think I'm right that say that China is the first. India has 1.2 billion people, and they have at least there are about 4 different languages that were originated in India. Added on to those are 2 or 3 other languages, so it is a multi-languaged country. Does that filter throughout all the country, or is that just in certain areas? Are there certain areas that one language prevails and nothing else happens? How's that work?
Hindi
Yeah.
is considered to be the national language,
Okay.
but then each state has its own
There are 26, right?
exactly
Okay.
language.
Okay.
So let me give you an example. Karnataka has Kannada as the state language.
Okay.
Maharashtra, whose capital is Mumbai or Bombay,
Okay.
has Marathi
Marathi. Okay.
as the state language.
Okay.
Gujarat, which is another state, has Gujarati. And then Tamil Nadu, which is another southern state, has Tamil,
Okay.
and on. So,
Okay.
so that the different regions or states have their own specific languages.
So that must be very, very confusing and conflicting. Or is it?
No, I don't think so.
No. Okay.
I don't think
How
so.
does is there any cross fertilization?
Well, there are some of the citizens of India that, by virtue of their travels and also through marriage or working in different parts of the country, are multilingual.
Okay.
Then, because of the borders that have been permeable, there are people that can speak languages that belong to their own specific state or region, as well as other people's states.
Now, Buddhism is also one of the prominent languages in India, along with Zoroastrianism.
Okay.
Yeah.
Buddhism is a faith, it's a religion. Hinduism is one. Zoroastrianism is another faith there. Sikhism is another faith.
Okay.
Christianity.
Okay.
There are people that practice Judaism. And so you have multiple religions as well in India.
Okay.
And then there is Islam.
And then there's some Christianity.
Exactly.
What is the level of Christianity in India?
The Christians, although are a minority, they would be about 1/3.
A whole third.
Yes.
That's a lot of people.
Yes, that's the thing, because
Now, is it regional or is it throughout India?
throughout India.
Throughout India.
Yeah.
Okay. And what other languages and religions are practiced in India, other than the ones we've just?
Okay, so there are Jains.
Okay.
And then there are those that are considered to be tribal religions. And what they mean by that is that their religions are located in specific areas in the mountains or in valleys or isolated locations where people don't usually visit. And so they have those tribal religions in India.
Kind of isolated.
Exactly.
Yeah. Now, for eons, many moons, the British ruled India, and India through Mahatma Gandhi gained its independence in 1958. Is that right?
47.
59.
47.
47.
Yes.
Well, what happened in 59?
Well, after the Brits had left,
Yeah.
then the citizens also had a way of dividing some of their communities, and so that's why I mentioned the changes that have been occurring in India over the years. And historically, the main date that I know of is that 47, the Indians became independent of the British. And then during that time, there was also the division of people along religious lines. The majority of Hindus remained in India, and then Muslims either went to what was called East Bengal, which is now Bangladesh.
Oh, okay.
Or West Bengal, which became Pakistan.
Okay.
So
both of which are border India.
Exactly.
Okay.
Yes.
And China is also borders India.
Correct.
And Iran, I think Iran borders India. Is that
no? Bhutan and Nepal.
Nepal.
Yes.
Okay.
So Iran, then you go into Central Asia.
Okay. I'm way off. I'm off track.
That's okay.
I'm off base.
That's okay. Yes.
Anyway, you have been doing a great service, studying what's going on, and how did you get involved in the study that you're? Tell me what the nature of the study is, so I can make sure that I'm talking about the same thing.
Okay. So over 20 years ago, I had a sabbatical, and I decided to go to India because I had heard that there are descendants of Africans who were taken by the Omani slave traders to India long time ago. So that was what motivated my first trip to India. And they are called Siddhis, either Siddis or Sidis. But before present day, they were called Habshis. Habshis is the word that is used with reference to people that come from Ethiopia.
Okay.
And so the Arabic for people that originate in Ethiopia is Habshu or Habshi. And so that name has now been given to all the descendants of Africans in India.
All Africans?
Yes.
Okay.
And they are called Siddhis.
What is the African population of India?
About 60,000 of descendants of Africans that have been part of that initial migration to India that are called Siddhis.
Do they all live in the same area of
No.
India? Oh.
They live in different states or regions.
Okay. So continue.
And so I mentioned the Omani Arab slave traders. Then there were some Indian princes who also took some of the Africans from East Africa in particular to India. Then later on, the Portuguese, the French, the Brits also carried some of the Africans to India.
Now, are you telling me that these three nations, these four nations you just named, all had some rule over India at one point?
Correct.
With the Brits being the last?
Exactly.
How does that work? Who got there first?
the Portuguese that took the Africans to India settled in Goa, and they made Goa as their headquarters. And then the French also carried some of the Africans to the southeastern corner of India.
Okay.
And then the Brits also took some of the Africans to Mumbai or Bombay and others. And then the Dutch were also involved in...
They came before the British.
Exactly. So,
Okay.
so what ended up happening was that all these European nations that either had established some control over different parts of continental Africa took some of the Africans to India. I'm using the word took because it's not only through slavery that the Africans arrived or landed in India. There were Africans that were merchants in their own rights,
Okay.
that were involved in trading activities between continental Africa and India.
Okay.
Then there were Africans that were navigators, that were traveling or plying the waters between continental Africa and India. And then some of the Africans went to India because they were in the guards. They were among the guards or the militia that the European nations needed to fight for them.
Okay.
So the histories of the migration spread over a long period of time. There are historians that argue that for over 1,000 years,
Oh, that's a long time. Okay.
there have been descendants of Africans in India, which means that that African presence in India and Pakistan predates the arrival of Africans in the Americas.
Oh, okay. So now, where's your study going? You got into this, and you 20 years ago.
Yes.
All right.
So my initial interest was just to understand how the Africans got to India, what they have retained of some of their cultural practices, and whether they have really integrated into the Indian society or not, what they have also contributed to the host society. And then I moved beyond that.
Well, let's go back and say, let's go back.
Okay.
Did they retain their cultural heritage or their
They have
characteristics?
retained, yes, they have retained aspects of their cultural practices, such as manifest in their dance gestures, and also there are some of them that still use Swahili phrases in their conversations.
Oh, okay. All right. Did they? How much integration did they make?
That is the question, because although they will wear outfits just as Indians, the women will wear their saris, the men will wear all kinds of outfits that other Indian men will put on. They tend to live in clusters, in enclaves, where you could meet about 100 to say 300 living together, so that the level of integration is not that which one would say has allowed them to meld into the larger society. So there are specific areas that if one were to say that one were visiting, then you would hear some people say, that's where the seed is. That's where the descendants of Africans, they can be found or they live. So that's how.
Easily identified.
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So where do we go from here now?
Well, then, after trying to understand how they got there, what they have retained, and what they have shared with the larger society, I started looking at the role of women amongst them.
Ah, okay.
And I paid attention to the Muslim women amongst them.
Mm-hmm.
One of the reasons that I picked that topic was that Muslims are a minority in India, since Hinduism is exactly.
Okay.
But within that minority faith, the women have been able to carve spaces whereby they use some ritual practices to affirm their minority status, as well as contribute to the spiritual well-being of the larger society. So there are female mediums. So there are those that when people have all kinds of ailments, they will go and visit. Further, there are some of the women that are medicine people, so medicine women. Then there are some of them that go into trance in order to communicate between saints and the living. And so my point is that by exploring the minority status of these Muslim women that originated in continental Africa, I was fortunate to discover that not only were they using their status in exploring other avenues, but they are also contributing to the well-being of other Indians that are not descendants of Africans.
Now, aren't there Muslim men as well?
There are.
Yeah.
There are Muslim men.
What role do they play?
The Muslim men also do different, are involved in different activities in India. But my interest in the women came from the fact that Islam is a minority faith.
Okay.
The Africans are a minority group.
Okay.
Women tend to occupy minority status in India.
All right.
Because India is highly stratified. And some scholars would say...
They still use the class system.
Exactly.
All right.
Some scholars would say that it is patriarchal. That patriarchy reigns supreme in India. And that's why I decided to explore how women, as part of a marginalized group, as part of people that originated in Africa, were functioning.
Yeah. Now, do they participate in the commonwealth of the nation? Do they participate in public offices or that kind of thing?
It is only recently that some of them, by virtue of the education they are receiving, are able to advance to the level that they can serve as, say, local leaders, but not in terms of the minister for transportation or being a minister for electricity or so. So they are at a rudimentary stage of being active participants in, to use your word, the Commonwealth of India.
Are there many white citizens still left in India?
Well, there are non-Indian expatriates in India at the moment, but not as many as during the times when the colonial authorities were there.
These would mostly be British, I suppose?
Exactly.
All right. How they were very effective in making India into the shape that they wanted it. What did Nehru and Gandhi have to do in order to get into its normal rhythm and its normal state of activities?
Well, I mean, I will speak out of ignorance, but what I hear is that Gandhi in particular encouraged Indians to begin becoming self-sufficient. Number one, when it came to the purchase of items such as salt, Gandhi encouraged his people to go to places where they could dig or harvest salt themselves.
Okay.
Number two, instead of wearing clothing that would have been imported from the UK or other parts of the world, he encouraged his people to wear, the women to wear the saris, or the men to spin yarn in order to manufacture their own clothing. And that's why he led an exemplary life by wearing the outfit that you often see him wearing. Because by wearing something like a lungi or the shirts that they will put on, he was telling and encouraging his people to just use resources within their own society rather than being dependent on imported items. So that kind of consciousness raising enabled him and Nehru to then inspire the others to find ways of throwing off the shackles of colonialism. And once the Indians also understood what their leaders were promoting for them and they followed them, it became very easy in some respect to let Britain go back to where it had come from.
And Nehru was the first president. Gandhi was the spiritual leader.
Correct.
Never held office.
Correct.
All right. As a matter of fact, he was very clear about not wanting to be a part of the government structure. And he was a nonviolent protester, which some people say that Dr. Martin King borrowed his rhythm and his theme. Could that be said? Since Dr. Martin King's movement was a nonviolent, peaceful movement?
You are right about that. So Prime Minister Nehru and then the Gandhi, such as Indira Gandhi and others who became prime ministers, they had a different approach from that of Gandhi himself, Mahatma Gandhi. And it is true, again, as historians would tell us, that his non-violent approach helped him to torpedo a mighty force or empire like Britain. And so MLK truly borrowed that approach or strategy from Gandhi.
He used it very effectively, as did Gandhi.
Exactly.
All right.
And but because we're talking about Africans in India, it is worth saying that Gandhi was also inspired when he was in South Africa and saw the atrocities that the leaders of the apartheid system were committing against the Africans in South Africa. So by the time he returned to India, his consciousness had been sharpened to find ways of resisting, contesting all forms of discrimination and exploitation.
But let's get back to your study. Where do we go from here?
Well,
You got 20 years out there to talk about.
at the moment, I have been fortunate to have members of the Wellesley Hills Congregational Church establishing connection with partners who are Catholic priests and nuns to find ways of helping to uplift the socio-economic and educational conditions of some of the marginalized communities in India.
Oh, okay.
And so they pay the tuition fees for some of the children. They buy sewing machines for some of the women. They also contribute towards intervening in human trafficking.
Now, is this in a particular area or
So
that they target?
yes.
Right.
So the state is Karnataka, and the capital of Karnataka is Bangalore.
Okay.
Next, I have been fortunate to be affiliated with Wellesley College, Harvard University, Northeastern University, and Brandeis University.
Are
So-
you still teaching it all?
No, not teaching at all. But
I was going to say, you got a load.
no. But over the years, there have been students that have accompanied me to go to India, and they have been doing the global engagement internship. So at the moment, Wellesley College in particular has been sending students since 2004.
How many
to
do
go-
they send at a time?
So there are years where there will be about 3, some years there will be about 4. And then Harvard, about 5 years ago, sent about 5 students.
How long do they stay when they go?
Between 2 months to 3 months. And it has been a great experience for the people in India as well as the students, because when they go and spend time with the members of the communities, they are given the opportunity to learn how people make do with the least possible resources you can imagine.
So what's the selection process?
Well,
It's a
interviews,
limited number of people. So
yeah,
so there must-
interviews are conducted. First, they apply for positions to go. Then interviews are conducted, and then the students are selected to go.
And what do they do when they come back? They have to give some kind of report on their experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
In October of this year, there will be some students from Wellesley College who will do a presentation at a conference called TANNER, TANNER,
When is that?
October 27th.
Okay.
And then there are times that the students will also use the material that they would have gathered during their time in India for their own, say, honest thesis, or incorporate data in their doctoral or master's work.
Well, these are graduate students then.
So from Brandeis University and Harvard University, so the graduate students would sometimes incorporate the data in their research and thesis.
Okay.
So the students also, when they go, walk alongside the people they meet. They travel with them so that they will understand the rhythm, back to your word, the rhythm of their lives. So some of them would teach English, others would teach the sciences, so math or chemistry or biology to some of the students in rural India.
Is there any exchange of India students coming here? And
Well, thank
all
you
right.
for asking that
Yeah.
question. We have had some students go to South Africa, and this year we are Wellesley College and the Wellesley Hills Church
Mhm.
are inviting some of the African Indians to come to Wellesley
No. For how long?
for about 3 months.
Same period of time.
Exactly.
Right. And where they stay on campus?
They will spend some of the time in
Mhm.
campus. Other times they will spend some of their moments with families, and so we're looking forward to such an important exchange. And I need to mention that the Albright Institute, which is at Wellesley College,
Mhm.
is also an active participant in this exchange.
Mhm.
The Madeleine Albright Institute has also taken a very keen interest in this program of sending students who will go as Albright Fellows and interact with the people in India, learn from them, and then incorporate their experiences and their knowledge in their studies.
How's Western culture impacted India?
That's also for the economics, the economy, people that are engaged in politics and other aspects of their lives. Because some say that India is part of what has been called BRICS, Brazil and China and India, and meaning that there are some advances that are taking place.
Mm.
However, as an outsider, I would say that the impact of such advances could be felt in the major cities.
Okay.
So once you travel further away from the major cities, there are many people in rural India that do not have most of the resources that one finds in the big cities. So that's why I was saying that economists, political scientists, international relation officials, and so on will talk much about how India is advancing, and it is true. However, not everyone seems to benefit from some of the advances.
I think anyone that has a computer has had some contact with India. In my case, repeatedly. It seems to be a very major industry doing computer work. Do they build or do they just serve as professional consultants or engineers or
That is the
specialists?
question. Well,
No.
I think all of the above.
Okay.
All of the above, because they don't just assemble parts from different parts of the world.
Mm-hmm.
There are manufacturing industries that are booming in India today in various fields. There are computer tech engineers. There are those that are engaged in software engineering. And so there are...
Is there an emphasis on engineer training in India?
There is. There is.
Okay.
That is why when we talk about Silicon Valley in the United States,
Okay.
you are bound to find people from South Asia, say India, Pakistan, and others, being those that are at the forefront of such engineering activities in the United States. So in India, there are various places where you find such engineers.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I understand that the outsource of all this job is because it's economically more feasible for a company to send its work to China and India and the Philippines than for them to do it in the United States. Is that?
I will plead ignorance and speak from
Okay.
my limited experience.
Okay.
That it is the case that you could go to, say, Newton Wellesley Hospital and have some tests done, and then you want the results read to you, and then you could hear from someone who is far away. But it's not every company that takes undue advantage of people that live outside of, say, the United States.
Mhm.
So it's not every outsourcing activity that exploits the people that are involved. My hunch is there are some companies or institutions in the United States that when they are involved in the outsourcing, and if you mention India or China, they might be paying those that are working in India either equal amount or
Equal to what?
equal, say, to what other people may be making in some parts of, say, the United States.
Oh,
I would
okay.
not want to treat all of them
Yeah.
as exploiting all the people who work for them. That's why I'm
Go
saying
ahead.
that.
Go ahead. You have my permission.
Okay, that's why I'm saying that I do not know or don't have all the details, but I would
Right.
want to argue.
Well, this is off your subject anyway. I just thought I would, since you were experienced and you go there and you observe what is going on, and I thought you. But let's get back again to where are we now in your study? Well, at this level, let's bring it up ahead up to now. You just got back.
Okay, Richard, so let me say this, that when I began my research out of curiosity,
Mhm.
it dawned on me that by exploring their histories and their experiences, I was also exploring an aspect of me.
Aha.
So it has taken on an important personal journey
Okay.
of identity, of my place in this world, and how by interacting with them, I am discovering a lot about myself as to what matters to me,
Mm-hmm.
what matters to the future of
Mhm.
my children,
Mm-hmm.
and how I can contribute to communities where I find myself. Let me add to this. As I went around interviewing people,
This is recently.
I found people that
Now the people you interviewed were Africans.
exactly,
Yeah. Okay.
and non-Africans,
Yeah.
that needed all kinds of things health-wise and aspects of their lives. And what has become of me is that I am becoming a mild activist.
What's a mild activist?
A mild activist is that
I was told that just the word activist.
that's it. A mild activist, I use that to indicate that through my publication,
Okay.
through what we're
Talk
doing
about what
now.
is your publication? I don't know about your publication.
It doesn't matter. I mean, occasionally I write, a paper here or there.
Okay.
But
We're waiting for the book.
well, there is. So, what I have been doing is calling attention to the difficult conditions under which some people live
All right.
because of policies or neglect or aspects of the caste system or gender differences or religious status. And so, by my calling attention to those instances of inequities, I am saying that I'm a mild activist. And I arrived at this place because I believe that it's not enough to just talk about people's research work and the outcome of their research, because we're working with people or working amongst people, and their lived experiences, their sense of dignity, their respect as human beings need to be included in whatever work we do. So that's why I framed it.
Do you go to India every year?
Yes.
For how long?
It depends. Sometimes I go for 5 weeks. Other times I go for 3 months, or sometimes 2 months. So, and I've spent longest.
What's the differentiation? What drives you? What is your mark that makes you go 5 or 3 months or?
That is, if I am on sabbatical.
Okay.
Then it means I have the latitude to spend a longer time
Okay.
there.
Otherwise, you just take some time off and go.
Correct.
Good for you. I want to be able to do that.
Well, you've done more than I am doing, so don't even.
No way.
Yeah.
No way. Well, is there anything else that you'd like to say? We're going to wrap this session up. I think we've spent a goodly amount of time on it, and we've gotten quite a bit of good information.
Okay.
And
Richard,
you didn't tell me when you were going to write the book, though.
It's been out.
It's in the making.
No, it's been out since 2000.
The book is out?
Since 2007.
What's the name of the book?
Shaping Membership.
Shaping Membership.
Yes. You just put in Shaping Membership and my last name, and it will come up.
Is that right? Shaping Membership.
Yes.
MEMBERSHIP.
Yeah.
What is? Tell
Why?
me about that. Yeah.
Okay.
All right.
So that leads me to my final point.
Okay. All right.
The descendants of Africans, as I said earlier, have been in India for a very long time.
All right.
But then it was only in 2003 that those communities were given a new status as scheduled tribes people in India. That is, they were recognized as citizens of India. Now,
all of them?
Well, in Karnataka,
okay.
But unfortunately, not all have, one, understood what that new status means. Two, not all know how to access whatever resources there are for them. And then three, in other areas in the same state, not every city has that status. So there is no equality or equal access to the resources. This is why I think that by virtue of their being descendants of Africans, they are perceived as outsiders and treated as such. Further, there are some Africans that have gone to India for studies.
Okay.
And so there is this sense of a growing number of descendants of Africans in India now. Those that are Indians, as well as recent Africans who have migrated for studies or for work. The climate today, Richard, in the newspapers we read, on television we see and hear that because of their complexion, because of the externals, there are some people that discriminate against them. Color is an important code in India. And the Africans that live in enclaves, they could go on market days to places outside of their communities, but as soon as the market day is almost over, they go back to where they came from.
Is that right?
And those that have come from outside India, that came from continental Africa, we read and we hear, and you can look that up.
Okay.
The fate of recent Africans in India. You just Google it. Some of them have suffered all kinds of atrocities by virtue of their skin color. And of course, as people, there are some of them that would also have broken some rules.
Okay.
And so look that up if you want further information regarding this conversation.
Right.
And I appreciate your giving me the opportunity to have a chat with you.
I'm glad that you could come, and I'm glad that you came with a lot of good information. And I have known you for a long time, and we've had lots of we had some good conversations. Thank you very much.
Thank you, young man.
And I want to thank my viewing audience. I'm Richard S. McGhee, and I wish to say good night from the Learning Tree.